Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kayleigh Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur podcast. And I am joined today by the fabulous Rach Howourth, who is an award-winning multi-six-figure business mentor who her clients call her the online sales queen. And in this episode, we are going to be diving into how you can maximize your sales in your business over the next couple of months. Rachel, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the episode. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I would love, before we dive into all things sales, which I know something that you're an absolute expert on and something that I know is going to really benefit our listeners, but I would love to know a little bit more about your own journey as an entrepreneur. So would you be okay sharing a little bit to our listeners in terms of your journey and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to be in corporate. I had a 17-year career with one company, which, you know, I look back now and I think, how does anybody stay for 17 years with one company? But at that point, I thought that that was all there was to life. You know, I didn't know that there was networking. I didn't know there was LinkedIn or, you know, social media. I was just in the zone of my corporate career. And I'd had my little boy, Oliver, who is now 10, but back then, you know, like when you've got a newborn and you're trying to juggle a corporate job with lots of travel and lots of hotel stays, it was an absolute nightmare. So I did what I know a lot of women do. I looked over the fence and saw that actually there was this world of entrepreneurship that I didn't really know that much about at the time. And I started a business. So I'll cut out the bit where I left corporate because that all took a little bit of time. And then I started my business where I met myself where I was at, basically, you know, just the same as how we would explain to clients to do.
Yes.
And I was like, what do I know best? What do people need? I went out networking, I asked what they needed, and they needed sales training. They wanted strategy. They wanted to know how to build a sales team, how to manage it, how to lead it, how to track towards a target. So I built a consultancy and a training business. And then obviously in 2020, when COVID came along, my face-to-face training business had to all stop because pretty much 90% of what we did was face-to-face.
Yeah.
So I then transitioned into the online space, which I have to say at the beginning, I was not a fan of. Could not understand for the life of me why people were sharing their bank statements and why people were like doing the crazy things that we see happening in the online space. And I was like, this is weird. Because I was a corporate girl, and then I went straight into running a consultancy where I was selling to other corporates. So everything I did was like the height of professionalism. So then in the online space, when you see people saying this is what I earn and here is my bank statement, I just couldn't get my head around it. But I decided that I didn't need to do it their way. I could do it my own way. And so I figured out how I would need to change my corporate sales process to the online sales process so that I could convert my entire business. And that's what I did. And here we are 8 years later. And I know that I'm now unemployable. Nobody would ever want to employ me because I've got so many of my own opinions that I would be an absolute pain in the backside. And so, yeah, I'm entrepreneur for life now.
Love this. I love this. And thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey there. And you know, I know you are absolutely the online sales queen. You specialize in sales. You support so many and have supported hundreds and hundreds of female entrepreneurs build their businesses, scale their businesses, make more sales, with the strategies that are really going to work for them. So I'd love to dive into this topic a little bit more today, because I think that sales and selling is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. I think lots of people build their concept and their brand, their business, and they're able to share their passion and support people with whatever it is that they're supporting them with. But then when it comes to actually making the sales, showing up and making those sales, a lot of people struggle. So let's just start with what are the most common struggles that people have with sales, would you say?
One of the biggest struggles is the fact that they position sales as asking for money. Like we grow up with whatever money mindset was in our family, if we've grown up with there's not enough money, we can't afford it, like rich people are greedy, rich people are mean. If we've grown up with any form of like money mindset, sort of issue, we then bring that into our business. So when we're making sales, there's a little voice saying, oh, you can't charge that, you can't ask for that. Rich people are greedy, you can't make money. So that's a really big area where people struggle. The other thing is that so many women especially attach their worth and their validation to external influences rather than internal. And it's only when you really do that like inner work of I am worthy, I am good, I do know my stuff, I am confident, nobody does it like I do. When you can show up with that absolute rock solid confidence, that's when your sales really start to take off. So I think there's a lot of like mindset stuff in there that holds us back. Imposter syndrome, comparison, all the things that predominantly women struggle with a little bit more than men. Men can be a bit more fake it till you make it, whereas us women, we've got, integrity, and we want to be honest and show up in the right way. And so all those little inner voices come up and try to sabotage us. Yes. And one of the best ways, I could give somebody the advice to move beyond that is to remember that selling is never personal. Somebody saying yes or no to your offer is never personal. Somebody saying yes or no to your offer is more about them than ever is about you. And so we've got to lead from service, and we've got to lead from a place of, I'm here to help somebody get a result, and they are going to want to buy into and invest into that result if it feels good for them, not if they like me. It's not a popularity contest. It's about positioning the value of an offer to somebody that has the problem that the offer would be the solution for. And when we get our heads around that, then everything starts to move in our businesses.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I can completely resonate with what you were saying there in terms of this kind of fear, this fear of someone saying no. I remember in my first couple of, months of business back in 2021, and I consistently got no's. I got, no, can't afford it, or it's not the right time, etc., etc. We've all heard it at some point in our journeys. Absolutely. And it took me a little while. I started to feel a bit icky about sales. And I want to dive into this in a minute with you, because again, queen of sales, I know you're going to have some great advice to people, but that was something that I was really worried about. I started to think, oh, is it me? What am I not being able to do? I'm not a millionaire coach out there who's attracting and being able to make sales effortlessly. And I think that's the thing as well. It's very easy to get tied up into what other people are doing. It's definitely something I struggled with, the comparison side of things. What's your advice or take on that? Because I definitely think for people, especially in their first year of business, let's be honest, you're going into an online space which is quite noisy. How do people really make themselves stand out and really kind of follow their passion? Because ultimately that's what they've created.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is about your offer, your choice of offer. So for me, offer sits front and center of everything. I know a lot of people would teach ideal client should be front and center of everything. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe in niche. I think your offer creates your niche. So for me, offer is everything. And when you get the offer right, everything flows from that point. So what I mean by getting it right is not just the typical, the messaging and the way that you articulate it and the, what you're going to teach. Of course, you're going to get what you're going to teach right, because you're an expert and that's why you've chosen to sell that thing. When I say get it right, I mean choose an offer that you can fully stand behind. So there are a lot of people I meet that I can see they're trying to sell an offer that gets a result that they haven't created themselves. And that's always going to feel hard to sell, always, because you're not coming from a place of, oh, this is how it was for me, and this is how it was for the clients that I've helped to do that as well. You're coming from a place of academics, and you're coming from a place of, this is how it could work, this is how it should work. Whereas when you sell from a place of authority, you're selling from the place of, this is how it did work, this is how it does work, like really, really confident. So I think the number one thing is get your offer right. And I think where people make a big mistake is they try to go out with a really big offer.
Yes.
And actually what works well is a tiny little micro offer that gets a tiny little micro result. And as long as that micro result is wanted and needed by many, you're never going to run out of clients. They're going to flock to you when you are then positioned as the person that can get that result. And I've seen this work in practice, you know, like I developed, God, this must have been about 2 years ago now. I developed what I called a 3-week sales sprint, where the specific offer was to get 9 discovery calls booked.
Okay.
And that offer for me was a real like launch pad for everything else that I've created off the back of it, because I decided I wanted to break down the formula using my own experience. So I spent time booking discovery calls, and I was noting down, what did I do that worked, what did I do that didn't work, what felt good, what didn't. And from there I built a 21-day like process that was tiny little activities, day by day by day by day. So then when I showed up to sell it, I was selling a result that I just achieved, a process that I just used, and I was able to give people really, really tiny broken down steps to follow. And that's what people really want. They don't want this really big goal that they can't like relate to. They generally want something small, tangible, very, very clear. And when you get that result for them, what I saw was 80% of people then went into another offer with me.
Amazing.
That's the conduit for success.
And I think that's an incredible piece of advice to share, because I see so many people, and even so many of my own clients, they will come to me and they will have a 12-week coaching program around £2,000, £3,000, whatever it is at the time. And it's a big offer. And they said, I'm not making any sales. I'm like, right, okay, let's look at the product suite, let's break it down, etc. But I love your take on that and how to really, you know, start to attract people in. And obviously, like you said, through your own experience as well, you're able to more confidently talk about the results that they're able to get, because you've experienced it yourself, you've done it yourself, you're a walking, talking proof of it working. So I think that's just so important, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's not how I started my coaching business. When I first started, I, set out a one-to-one offer. I priced it at 5K. I sold it at a 50% saving. And the first 6 people that bought it, I was like, right, that's enough now. I'm not going to discount it anymore. 6 people is enough for me to generate enough content and social proof and like stories around the results that these women are going to get. So it isn't the start that I had.
Yeah.
But I came at it knowing my value. I just run another business for 4 years. So I was able to say, I've just run a training company for 4 years. I've helped over 300 companies build bespoke training programs for their teams. So like I'm coming at it as a personal development expert with a 20-year career in sales. So I came at it from a completely different angle. Yeah, I also left my corporate job with a bit of an exit settlement, so I wasn't desperate for cash either. So when you look at that setup that I had, I can't use that as an example for other people because it was so unique. Whereas now I've helped hundreds of women to get off the starting blocks, start from zero and build a business. I can now see that the best and the easiest way is not to look for the unicorn client. It's to build your authority on something that you absolutely know, on the inside, on the outside, through your language, through your energy, when all of that is in alignment, everything is easier to sell because it's so believable.
I love this. So trust, as we know, is a massive, massive part of building a successful business, making sales. And obviously you're talking about there, building a micro offer as such, and being able to kind of sell that in your zone of genius. How would you recommend, or what kind of advice could you give on building trust? Because I think that's another thing that a lot of people will struggle with. And again, I think it's so easy to see other people using attraction marketing and just selling with their, the click of their fingers. That's not necessarily how you build your business, especially in that first year or so of business. So what kind of advice could you give around sort of building trust overall in the online space?
The things that I see build trust the fastest are transparency, openness, like real integrity, authenticity, like telling your story, telling your background, telling I call it like your timeline, like looking back over the pivotal moments in your life and career that have really brought you to where you are today. And that isn't all just, hearts and flowers, because life isn't hearts and flowers, like that's us being able to say, do you know what, there was this one time and it completely like failed for me. And, it was in the learning from that I was able to see this, like being able to really tell our story and take our audience on the journey with us. That builds trust in a huge way. The problem with that is that I think when people start their business, they think that they've got to show up perfect and polished, and they've got to kind of have the persona of the highly successful business person, and so they're kind of like trying to fake that. Whereas really, if they just embraced who they are and where they are and what they're good at and what they're passionate to share, that would be more magnetic than anything that is a fake polished version of their future self. And I think for me, trust just comes back to relationship, connection, honesty, authenticity, and sharing.
Absolutely. And I can completely, resonate with this in the sense of when I've made my own investments, or when I've looked up to another coach in the industry or someone else in the industry, and I've connected with exactly that. They're not necessarily always their vulnerability, but their journey, their story, exactly what you were saying. And even when, when I look back and when I share the pivotal moments of my journey, or my struggles, or what people assume versus what actually I'm going through or working on, etc. I think they are the things that people can really resonate with and relate to. And it's those moments, it's those snippets of your journey or your story that people can connect with. And actually that normally can really support people, or often, should I say, can support people with leading to sales, or with leading into, nurturing them as key audience members. So absolutely, I really, really, value what you said there, and 100% would agree with you. Now, there's a lot about, and I know I mentioned attraction marketing, and a lot of people sell in the DMs, and lots of people like to do sales calls. And I would love to know what your opinion is on this, because a number of my clients ask me as well, should I do sales calls? Should I not? Should I sell in the DM? Should I do voice notes? How would you say is the most effective way ultimately to sign clients and to make sales?
Just do what you love. Like, I mean, nobody wants that answer though. Nobody wants that answer. Just do what you enjoy. But that is the truth. Like, that really is the truth. If I give somebody a strategy, or you give somebody a strategy, and it doesn't feel good, do not do it. Do not do it. If you hate sales calls, don't do sales calls, because it doesn't matter whose fancy script you use, you're never going to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, it's not going to feel good for the person on the receiving end of it. So, I mean, it's a crap answer though, because people don't want to be told do what you enjoy. They want to be told this is what works best. This is the silver bullet. This is the thing that if you do it like this, it's going to work every time. The reality is, in sales, nothing works every time. Nothing is 100% successful ever. And I've worked with some of the most amazing salespeople, and they're still not 100% successful. I'm a great salesperson. I don't get 100% yeses. So find what works. build a strategy that feels good from start to end, like the entire customer journey.
Yeah.
And then accelerate that so that it's as short as possible, because the sales cycle, the timeline, matters. If it takes you, like 8 weeks to build trust and sell an offer, but actually if you could shortcut that to 6 weeks or 4 weeks, well, you're going to sell double the amount if you can halve the time. So like the sales cycle matters, which is all about how quickly you build trust.
Yeah.
And then obviously the place, the physical place where you are when you invite somebody to work with you matters. So if you cannot deliver your price whilst making eye contact on Zoom with your audience, sales calls is not the one. That's not your best place to sell. If you feel, if you're somebody that goes out for a daily walk and you have an energy, that translates well, if you are voice noting and walking, I love voice noting and walking, and you feel that that would be a good place for you to have conversation with your ideal client, then that would be a good way to go. If you are a great writer, you love writing and communicating through the written word, then maybe you should be selling through email more than any other place, and maybe funnels and email marketing is your best way to sell. So I really don't think there is a one way is the best way. It comes back to what you love. Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Are you a data, a factual person, and you want to present the case? Or do you want to feel into it a little bit more? Is your program, is it like, I support a lot of like therapists, right? And they do a lot of very private, confidential, emotive work.
Yes.
So if you've got to build enough trust for somebody to pour their heart out to you, selling through Canva graphics and a voiceover slide deck is not the way, because they're not going to build connection. So I think the variables are, how do you love to sell? Who is your ideal client? What is the offer? And is there a fit there around, the kind of level of emotion involved in the sale, the sensitivity of the topic? There's those variables that we need to think about. And then can you fit it into your lifestyle? Because really, we should be selling every day. And if you can't stack your habits so that you can find sales opportunities every day, or not sales opportunities, opportunities to sell, should I say, every day, like going for a walk, then you're not going to sell as much. So it's got to fit into your life as well. So I don't know if that's a good answer or like.
No, it is, absolutely. And no, I think you're completely right there as well. I mean, I just thinking about what you were saying there, I love voice notes. I'm a definite voice note person, and I do sell in the DMs. That is generally, unless someone really wants to jump on a call, I always sell in the DMs, but normally through voice notes, because I love connecting, having conversations, really getting to understand the person, of course. But I think you're absolutely right, because if someone loves sales calls and they convert better on sales calls, etc., and that's what they enjoy doing, absolutely. But you're absolutely right in terms of the type of person that they are, who they're actually supporting, their ideal client. I think it really does differ from business to business and entrepreneur to entrepreneur. So I really value what you've said there. And I definitely think that, for all of our listeners that are listening to this episode, think about how you enjoy selling and what you like to do. But Rach, you talked about their selling every day. Now, again, this is something that I think a lot of people do struggle with. And sometimes it can feel a bit icky to people, and sometimes they don't like asking for the sale. What's your advice around that in terms of showing up and selling every day? Is there anything that you could give our listeners to kind of help them along a little bit with this?
I would say if you can't find a passion for selling, maybe go get a job. Because when you're running a business, you have to make peace with the fact that the money, that the income of your business is reliant on you.
Yeah.
It's not reliant on anybody else until you get to a scalable point where maybe you hire somebody to do your sales calls, you hire somebody to do DMs. If you can get to that point, amazing, right? Outsource sales. If you can't find a love for selling, and you're maybe the extreme version of that, as in you absolutely hate it, then maybe running a business isn't for you, because you have to love it. And you're only going to love it when you position sales as serving. because nobody wants to wrestle somebody to the ground for their last £100.
No.
You know, like that's not what selling is. And I think the only people that hate selling are the ones that see it as asking for money. When you see selling as helping people, because that's what it is, providing a solution to a problem, when you see sales as that, you will love selling, right? Imagine if you were selling for a dentist, right? And you were sat on the front desk of a physical dentistry business, and people were coming in all day going, I'm in pain, like my jaw is absolutely killing me, I need to get in and see a dentist. Imagine if your job was selling the solution to that, and you get to see them in pain, and then when they're on their way out, they're like, thank you so much, right? When you can see sales as that you've just helped somebody get out of a situation that was causing them, you know, anxiety, stress, you know, frustration, burnout, you know, real struggle and turmoil. When you can see sales as you being the conduit for helping somebody get from that to the thing that they want, then you will want to sell every day. The only reason people don't want to sell is because they think they're asking for money, and actually they're not. They're giving opportunities to people to achieve change. Because the reality is we all sell the same thing. You sell the same thing, I sell the same thing, a mindset coach sells the same thing, a VA sells the same as us, everybody's selling the same thing. We're all selling change. We're all selling change. We're all selling change that happens in the future, because you can't change the past, and the present is where we are right now, and we can't change that. We change the future. So we're all selling this idea that the future is going to be different from right now. So where somebody has the desire for that change, and you are the person that can enable that, who would hate selling then? Nobody.
So right.
No.
Absolutely.
So we gotta learn to love it by just seeing it differently, reframing it, you know, embracing the new mindset about what it is and what it isn't. Because if you hate it, it's probably because you're seeing it in the wrong way.
And you can have so much fun with sales as well. I think for me, a massive mindset shift. I had a massive mindset shift back in 2022. And it was almost as if I'm just going to have some fun. You know, I'm going to set myself a goal. I had my goal and my target for the month. And I remember this very, very well. And I said, I'm just going to have some fun. I'm just going to see what I can do. I'm going to be, you know, really open with what offers I've got on the table, and just show up every day on my stories and sell. And I think it was that kind of mindset shift that I had, where again, it started to not feel icky. It started to, you know, because I was quite, you know, quite scared, quite afraid at the very beginning stages of my business, but I kind of just leaned into that. Let's have fun. Let's see how it goes. And it's amazing how much I felt more confident with selling, and how this kind of weight lifted, and I started to bring in sales. And I'm not saying I had like the most amazing month ever of sales, but they did start to come in, and it started to, you know, raise my confidence. And that helped me an awful lot. Do you see the same with some of your own clients? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, you know, I give them some like daily mindset practices and like some affirmations. I've got lots of little like daily exercises that I get people to do that help them make peace with money, you know, and feeling okay with money, help them make peace with sales and the sales conversation. Yeah, I see it all the time. But when you position sales as helping, you know, like, and if you could say to yourself every day, you know, morning, lunch and dinner, you know, like, the more people I work with, the more help I'm giving. Like the more I sell, the more I help. The more I sell, the more I serve. Like if we can just get into that mindset, like that's going to really help to reposition it in your mind around what it is that you're doing. And I know some people go to the extreme of saying, you know, like if you're not selling your offer, you're being selfish. You're actually getting in the way of your client accessing the result that they want and need. No, like, so you've got to put it out there. And I think the other thing is that when I say sell every day, the selling every day doesn't always look like selling.
Yes.
It doesn't look like selling. It doesn't feel like selling. It doesn't sound like selling, but it's selling. For example, I did I did an 11-day live series on Instagram.
Mm.
And I'd written down like 11 topics that I wanted to talk about, and I spread it out over 11 working days. So I skipped weekends. So it took sort of just over 2 weeks. And I didn't know what was going to happen as a result of that. All I was doing is inside of those live trainings, I was seeding offers that I had. So where I mentioned, like one of the topics was DMs, and I've got a course on how to sell in the DMs. So all I would do is very, very lightly, very gently, very lovingly say, and if you want to know more about how to sell in the DMs, I do have an online course that will help you with that. That's it. That's all I said. Didn't say anything else. There was other things I, mentioned that I have an offer for, and I would just literally just slightly sprinkle it in. Anyway, about a week, maybe 2 weeks after that, I had this amazing client who on paper, you would probably think, she should be my coach, like she's got a bigger audience than me, a bigger profile than me, her brand is stronger than mine is, but she can't sell. And so she'd watched these lives and she voice noted me and said, I need you. Her first message was literally, I need you. I've literally just binged all of your live trainings. I've actually fallen in love with you. Like, I need a VIP day and I need it quick. And within less than 7 days, we were sat doing a VIP day together. And all that had happened is I'd done 11 days of live training that was value packed with the odd little sprinkle to give a suggestion of how I help. And she watched all of them. So anybody that's not going live, anybody that's not like really showcasing value is missing out big time. And that didn't look or sound like selling. It was just training.
I love that. I love that way of approaching sales as well. Like you said, not having to necessarily directly sell and mention your offer every single day in the same format, etc. Experiment, play around, give value. And I think I love that piece of just giving value and drip feeding in a little mention or how you can support them, or maybe how you've supported a client with X, Y, and Z. And great advice in regards to that, because I think that's definitely a different approach to selling, and something that actually so many people could do and implement into their own strategy.
Oh, really? Like, one of the biggest things I hear, and I'm sure you hear this as well, I hear people say is, oh, Rachel, like creating content is just a nightmare. And the content doesn't lead to DMs and inquiries anyway. So I've kind of lost my heart with it. Like it just feels hard. They're spending hours in Canva trying to come up with like the best post, and then it falls on its face and it just doesn't feel good. And and this has happened multiple times. I've seen people do this. I say, what about if you don't go into Canva? What about if you don't create any posts in Canva? What about if you just free yourself from all of that and go live for 5 minutes a day, or at least twice a week? And that's all you did. And in that 5 minutes, you answered one question that people vote for in your stories. So you ask a question, you gather what it is they want to know, and then you answer one question on a live so that people can see you and hear you and get a feel for your energy. You don't have to sell anything, but you do have to have things in your bio, a link, so that people can actually come and check you out.
Yeah.
And every time I've had people do that, it has changed their business completely in the space of a 5-minute live.
So there's a tip for people to implement. Go live. Ask your audience what they would like support with, or what questions they have, and then go live and answer that question to your audience. I love that. That's great, especially because I think people do overthink content to an extent sometimes, and it can, it can get a little bit overwhelming for people, especially if you're really busy or you're just not sure, or maybe if you're not even in a launch as well. I think sometimes when people are in the the in between of launches, or they're selling evergreen like I do, it's not always as simple to have a really clear strategy for your content. So I really like that piece of advice. In talking about sales and consistency, and I know people have different business models, so we won't dive into the business models themselves because there's so many different ways that you can look at business, we know. But in terms of consistency, and we always hear and see people talking about make consistent sales, or hit 10K months, 20K months, whatever it is that they're wanting to aim for. What's your advice on being able to bring in consistent sales? Because I know that people struggle with that. And I think every month people kind of, start from the beginning again and go, oh, I've got to make, assign 5 new clients this month in order to make sales, in order to reach my target again. So what's your kind of advice that you could give around making sales consistently?
So I think it's important to be clear on like the definition of what that means.
Mhm.
So making sales could be brand new people in, but it could mean money hitting your bank account. And so if you work on monthly recurring revenue, and that, ideally you would have a 6 month, maybe a 12-month program whereby the money hits your account because you're selling payment plans, then your income is going to stack and stack and stack. And that will give you that feeling of like safety and confidence that your future run rate in your business isn't going back to zero each month. It's not resetting, it's just growing and growing. So I think it's important when you say, when people are thinking, well, I want to be consistent, I want consistent sales. Do they mean getting yeses every day? Or do they mean money hitting your bank account every day? So like one thing I do, I've got this like abundance tracker. And when I first started using it, I'd have, my like higher payment plans coming in that I would log onto my abundance tracker. And then I would have, a £27 course and a £47 course coming in. And then I started to have fun with it and be like, well, what would it look like if I had the goal that every day I wanted at least £200 a day? Like, doesn't matter where it comes from, some of my self-study, what could that look like? And of course, that starts to really grow your monthly recurring. It starts to really, focus you on building funnels that are selling for you in the background. And that all helps with consistency. But to give, I don't want to confuse people with funnels and all of that other tech stuff, because that's a whole other world. That's another episode.
Yeah.
But it's a whole other thing. But like, I think from a consistency point of view, it's important to define what you mean by that. What would make you feel safe in your business? Let's just say that the answer that all the listeners are thinking about is, well, I just want to get yeses. I want to know that every week I'm going to get a yes. I'm going to get a yes, I'm in. Yes, send me the link. I want to hear that for my own confidence. Then I would say you've got to reverse engineer back from that. So if you want to get the yes, I'm in, you have to ask yourself, well, typically, where are people when that conversation is happening? So if it's a sales call, I need more sales calls. If it's DMs, I need more DMs. So consistency of the outcome needs consistency of the inputs. Yeah. So I see sales, money in the bank is just the outcome.
Yes.
The activities is where you then need to focus your consistency, because you can't get the consistent yeses if you're not doing the consistent activities. It's a simple equation. So it doesn't mean you've got to do all the things to all the people, all the days, and be absolutely knackered. What it means is you've got to reverse engineer your way of selling. Where am I when I get the most yeses? What sort of strategy am I implementing when I get the most yeses? Is it an evergreen model? Is it a launch model? Is it a funnel? Like, where am I when that happens? And then you've got to work back into the activities to say, okay, roughly how many of those activities do I need to do to get one yes? So that you're then playing the numbers game, basically, of knowing that, if I put some really good story sequences in my stories, I'm going to generate X number of DM inquiries. And then it's a case of like not focusing your brain on the consistent money, you're then focusing on the consistent activity. And that feels easier to do.
Yeah, I love that. Money generating activities, lead generation. There's so much there, isn't there? And I know we could talk about this topic for hours. But I love the way to approach that as well. I love how you've shared that. And again, to all of our listeners, just really think about what Rachel said there, because it's so important to work out exactly what you said, what is consistent sales to you, and reverse engineer it, work back, what do you need to do in order to bring in those inquiries, to make those inquiries turn into sales, etc. So, I really appreciate your advice on that. So we're coming towards the end of the episode. I would love to kind of ask, what is your final piece of advice to people in regards to approaching sales?
I would say, like, stay in your lane, because I think in this crazy online world that we are in, we are surrounded by people who are further ahead than us.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get caught up in chasing someone else's goal. Like, you've got to get clear on your own goal so that you can stay in your own lane. If you don't want to go VAT registered and scale to 1 million, don't do it. You don't have to do it. Get clear on where your level is. If hitting 5K a month every month forevermore is what makes for a comfortable life for you, stay with that. You know, like, don't get sidelined into thinking you've got to build a business like everybody else does. If you do want to go VAT registered, you know, then you've got to hit 7K months consistently, and then like leapfrog over it as far as you can so that you can like suck up that 20%. So like, think about what the long-term goal is. Do you want to be a VAT registered business? Do you want to, you know, scale to 500K, 1 million? Do you want to build an empire? Or actually, do you just want to build a business that gives you a great life for your family and gives you a little bit of freedom? You know, so I would just say, just get really clear and stay in your lane. You know, like, have a good goal, have a better and a best goal, but never let one of the goals be somebody else's.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think people tie themselves in knots and get drawn into all sorts of stuff that they don't need to do.
Absolutely. Great advice. Staying in your lane, and everyone has their why, their reason for building their businesses and starting them in the first place. And whether it's freedom, whether it's success, whether it's wealth, financial freedom, etc. There's so many different things, but absolutely stay on your lane and stay focused on what you want to achieve and ignore what everyone else is doing. It's your business.
Exactly. And like, embrace who you are, because those people with the other goals, you know, whether they're double yours, treble yours, 10 times yours, it really doesn't matter, because they're not you. You know, like, I think all too often we're comparing ourselves with other people rather than spending time really embracing who we are and why we are so good at what we do, like what our strengths are, like what our customers are reflecting back to us is the reason why they love working with you. Like, really, like, leveraging that without feeling like you're bragging or boasting, because it isn't that. It isn't that. Like, I think a lot of the time too many women are like, oh, I can't share what I'm good at because it looks like I'm bragging. No, it doesn't. You're a business. And just the same as, you know, like Apple would showcase the features and benefits of the product and why this one is better than the Samsung. We have to do that, which means you have to know what's your USP. Like, what are you so much better at than everybody else, and why? And can you share that, you know, coming from a place of passion rather than from a place of like sort of apologetically like, oh, I think I'm quite good at this, you know, like, take away all the doubtful language of possibly, maybe, might do, and say, I'm good at this. This is what I'm an expert in, and like, really own it. I know you talk about leadership a lot, don't you? You know, like, if we're not leading ourselves, then we're just not leading, and therefore we won't have a successful business. So
Absolutely.
stand in our power, girls.
Stand in your power. People invest in leaders, absolutely. And it's about, you know, again, just standing up, sharing your voice, sharing what you're passionate about, but also what you're good at and how you can change people's lives. As you said earlier, you know, it's all about the change and what you can offer them. Thank you so much, Rach. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've just got one final question that I ask every single guest on my podcast. What is your one word or mantra for this year?
It's abundance. My word, of course it is. My word this year is abundance. So I always do, every like new year, I set out my word, I set out my 3 initiatives for the year, and then underneath each initiative I like plan what that actually means in practice. And then we have some like decision making questions that I don't say yes to things, I don't get involved in things unless they sit under those 3 initiatives, which then obviously is, you know, reflective of that word. So yeah, abundance.
Abundance. I love it. Thank you so much, Rach, for being our guest on today's podcast episode. Where can my listeners find you and connect with you?
Everywhere. So my number one hangout is Instagram, and my handle is at Rach Howourth. No dots, dashes, or any of that, just Rach Howourth. And yeah, that is my preferred place. I've got loads of trainings, like I said, on my account. So if they want to hear me ramble on some more about sales, then that's where to go find it.
Amazing. So go and say hello and connect with Rach. And I will also put the links and connections in the show notes. But Rach, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I don't know where the time's gone.
No. It's always a great pleasure to have conversations with you, my lovely. And absolutely, for all of our listeners, take on the advice that Rachel shared today and really think about how you're showing up, how you're selling every day, and really go for it. Don't hold back, have that confidence. And thank you to everyone that's tuned into today's episode. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast with me, your host, Kayleigh Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow, and scale your dream six-figure or multi-six-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.